I had a theory for a while that when I worked at Grace in Houston, the Gulf Region Advocacy Center, a part of what happened in my mysterious parting from them was a setup. And it had something to do with Ted Cruz. If I go back in time, he was doing things at that time, and the year I worked there was the year there were the most executions in the state of Texas scheduled. And then there was Hurricane Harvey. And part of what happened during Hurricane Harvey is that legal matters associated with the state of Louisiana were coordinated with Houston because of what happened to the comparable office for the Capital Defense, the nonprofit Capital Defense firm that was in network with Grace. And so there was legal support that was done out of Houston following Hurricane Harvey. And I didn't know about that because I didn't do the actual legal work. I was supposed to do bookkeeping and deal with stuff like that. And I did not have an active driver's license at the time. It was not on the insurance. But I did drive to the bank to make deposits occasionally in the car for the firm. And they never asked to see my driver's license, even though I had to give them identification when I went to work there. But they never asked to get my driver's license and put it on the record. And I didn't think too much about it because the only time I drove the car was literally like maybe half a mile to go to the bank to make the deposits. But I drove the car to the bank to make deposits. And anybody who's actually legally minded has to know what the implications are. They have to know. And nobody told me, and I should have known because I was driving without a license. But what is that? What is the implications of that? And then at some point, one of the interns who was from Europe, they had a couple of European uh, interns that were studying international law, and they were specifically studying capital defense in the United States. And one of them got bitten by a spider, a brown recluse, and she had been staying in a room in the actual house, which is where the office was located. She got really, really sick. She had to go to the hospital. Something happened after she got sick. And at some point, I had to do something administrative connected to getting information so that the medical treatment for her could get paid. But something happened when she got bitten. And so a question comes up, was there some sort of potential liability that the firm was exposed to or that the organization was exposed to when she got bit by the spider and had to go get medical treatment? And so other things were scrutinized up to and potentially including the fact that I was driving to the bank without an actual Texas driver's license because I never got a Texas ID. I kept my Illinois ID. So I never got a Texas driver's license, but I was making my job was to make deposits and to get money from the bank for the firm using a vehicle that was registered to the firm or it was registered to the organization without a Texas driver's license. At the least, let's put it this way. So if in fact Texas does something where, as I understand, they try to get you to believe that your driver's license is a license for all kinds of other stuff that isn't just about driving a car, right? At least this has been what's happening since I've been here. Did they have something comparable going on, some scheme comparable back then? And so by virtue of the fact that I didn't have a Texas driver's license, it wasn't even just about whether or not I had a license at all, but I didn't have a Texas driver's license. And so I was doing all of this work about bank deposits. And so then at some point I come back and and then they have everything spread out all over the place. They'd hired some new person who was supposed to be an intern. He was supposed to be a legal intern though. And then they bring me in and they have everything spread out on the floor and the woman who was in charge was acting like she was very upset. She was like she couldn't believe how disorganized it was and how badly and everything was missing. And I was confused because I was like, well, yeah, I told you. I went through, I did it. I told you it was the same shit that fucking happened at, at YWeb, where somebody else would come in and look through the folder and be like, well, there's all this stuff missing. And I'm like, yeah, I've been telling you. I'm not getting receipts. I'm not getting reports. Well, I mean, we can't accurately reconcile things if we, I know, but I didn't have that kind of assertiveness back then. I was really, really submissive. So, of course, it was my fault. It didn't matter how many times I told him. How many times I have to tell you that I need a receipt? I didn't have that kind of assertiveness. And so she ended up having all the stuff on the floor. And he was there, and she was showing him things, like as if to say, well, this is the way it's supposed to be done. And it's not being done that way, is it? And he was like, oh no. And he'd never done anything like that before. But that day, she had everything out on the floor. It was all over the floor, piles all over the floor. And she just started like manically, it seemed like she was just manically going through it and talking to him. And at some point, I ended up leaving. And the messed up thing is that when I left, I got this feeling. I was horribly, horribly, horribly inundated with this terrible, terrible, like doom and gloom feeling. It was as if something was going on in the unconscious that was connected to a lot of debt. And I was already working at a capital defense firm, so there was that. And my partner was Palestinian, so there was that. But there was something else. It was like they were dumping something into my unconscious. There was some sort of underwriting that was going on. And I got physically, like, I didn't get physically sick, but I got, like, so depressed. I got so depressed that I barely left the place for several weeks. And that had never happened to me. Even when I came back from Palestine, that had never happened to me. So now my concern is that what ended up happening is around the time I came to Texas to see, because my anticipation was I was going to come to Texas early, I was going to get the apartment, I was going to set it all up, I was going to start working my job so that when my partner came, then he would already be set up. And it would just be like he was like, he would be able to do whatever he had to do with school, and he wouldn't have to worry about all the other mundane stuff like housing or even transportation or anything like that. Well, that was around the time that presumably, at least that's what the media reports now, that whoever Ted Cruz's wife was, ended up, walking in the middle of the street, and she got caught with this associated, and had to go in for some sort of medical treatment. Now, this is the reports that have been circulating for the last 3 years. Did somebody do something where they accessed her medical records and swapped us out? Because that's part of my concern is that that's what happened in San Francisco. Is that even before I went to the actual hospital, that they had swapped out something connected to my identity with Ted Cruz's identity, especially after they had created this profile of me as being all Christian. And I'd been in the church with the people, and I had been doing what I had been doing. I worked for the JCUA for a while. And so somebody else created some profile on me. And then when I was in San Francisco, they swapped me and Ted Cruz. So they did all this toxic shit to her. And they did all of this. And I believe she was connected to, if not personally responsible for, horrendous, tremendous financial crime. Horrible, horrible financial crime. So significant that I was supposed to be so drugged, I had no analytical capability while they were using me to launder it. And in the backtracking, I already know that part of what I was experiencing ever since I got back to Chicago were scenarios connected to those Citigroup hearings from the late 90s regarding the Russian money laundering, and the other one regarding the private banking. And somehow there's somebody, including me, created this like fantasy scape with all of this bondage. And that actually correlates with named references of people that had facilities at the Houston Medical Complex. That I believe they created, like there was like profiles. There might even have been biometric accounts associated with the individuals who are the named sponsors of the medical center in Houston. And so while they were hooking up these major bonds on the medical center, and I was working at YWeb, they were laundering all of this horrible, horrible stuff connected to those Citigroup reports through me. And I believe that Ted Cruz or the Office of the Solicitor General and other people knew, and they intentionally did it. And so while I was in Chicago, they did all this stuff with me and Shira, and I think that was also connected to stuff regarding whatever she set up in New York. And then the whole intention was, at some point, they were going to find a way to offload that to other people. That they were setting it up using our lives and our identity. And you know what? We're younger, too. We're younger, and we have a completely different family background. We have a completely different experience set. We have completely different skills. And the people who got our lives, were willing to do dirty shit we would never have fucking done. But they did it, and they fucked their own lives up, but they knew at some point, well, they'd just be able to swap it out. I believe it was actually 100% premeditated, that fucking intentional. And so somehow a whole bunch of my life ended up getting swapped out to Ted Cruz's wife. And, you know, even if he was set up by people who were his opposition, it's no fucking excuse for him to do the same fucking thing. You're not saving your wife or saving your little girl. You're aiding and abetting a criminal conspiracy. It's doing the same thing to other fucking people. I think that that's what's going on. And apparently, if I'm correct, because of the relationship San Francisco had a specific relationship with entities in China around biomedical development, about public health. And when I was working in San Francisco, my colleague who I worked with, we started with CVE and then we went to the other organization, we were subcontracted. She was Chinese American. And I just edited it. She developed a emergency preparedness and response paradigm based on her research and what she did. She developed the training materials with the other people around the employee training. Every single employee had to acquire every year. This is part of the paradigm. So if they were doing some sort of experiment on her and I being in that position where I dealt with operations and facilities, I dealt with the facilities management and the database management, knowing, as they must have known somehow, whoever made that decision, that my father was a computer programmer for the goddamn military. See, that's the thing they did with us. Everybody that was in that CVE, not only did they personally have a life where they done things that were very productive and very active, including politically active, before they got sick, but all of us had fathers that did something very, very significant, and they did not want us to be the inheritors of our own family legacy. They set us up in that program so they could make somebody else in lineage with our actual families and what our actual families did. And then what the fuck were we supposed to do? What the fuck were we supposed to be doing the rest of our fucking life? So the question then becomes, did somebody intentionally torture us with directed energy weapons and then lie to us when we sought assistance so that they could dispossess us of our livelihoods and our lives and copyright products or artistic renderings of their supposition and presumption of what our lives were? And then feel like what? That they were entitled to be royalty holders? And that we should produce according to their specifications. And if we didn't, they fined us. And they penalized us for copyright infringement. Because we were copyrighted products that belonged to them. And we were supposed to say and do things like they wanted us to. And if we did something that demonstrated independent thinking or free will, well, we were in violation of the copyright somebody else had put on our fucking life. And so somehow I had to live for years and years being completely slandered and tortured about being a whore, about being a Satanist, and then taking bribes, including bribes connected to laundering money through charities, Christian charities in other countries. That wasn't my life. I never fucking did that. Did somebody else do that and just decide they were going to put on my charity bond of fucking perfection and wear it around in their Christian fucking splendor for the last 10 fucking years while I was supposed to be paying off the fines and penalties associated not only with the copyright infringement, but whatever actual fucking financial crimes those people literally are committing? You keep wanting me to believe I'm some sort of fucking broker or investment advisor. I never got anybody that did anything remotely fucking legal connected to the fucking financial sector this entire fucking time. Everybody wanted me to be a junkie fucking prostitute hooking up fake fucking paper. Who lets that fucking persist this long? We're dealing with a goddamn global biological war. Who the fuck thought it was okay to preference a fake copyright claim on somebody's actual fucking life over doing their fucking job? Well, apparently the fucking copyright is expired. What are you going to do? There's no fucking way you're gonna try to force me to honor any bullshit program where I'm supposed to be paired as a little girl to some old guy for his fucking retirement. If you thought you were gonna hook up your goddamn fucking Department of State broker system, where you broker international fucking arms and I'm just supposed to shut the fuck up and take my medicine, you guys just got fucking busted and all your fucking copyrights are fucking canceled.